Hello, people.
Hello there. We're out here at the Grand Canyon over at Hermitland.
Yes, we're at a place called Hermit's Rest at the end of a long shuttle bus drive to bring you another episode of...
Well, technically this is in the adventure, but it's also behind the... We're living in the adventure, but we're talking...
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Adventure / In the Adventure, according to somebody.
Wow, that sugar's really kicking in hard.
So, yeah, we are on site in the Grand Canyon.
At Hermit's Rest.
Having a swell time, and we figured we would talk about our journey to get out here, because it's a little different from just hopping in your car and driving hundreds of miles.
Which we've also done.
Yes, we have, although not out to here.
Yeah. So do you want to kind of like tell people why the heck, like, I think what we should preface this by saying is, if you guys haven't seen the original video of us being out here, in short, we decided to take Amtrak to come out here. So I think it would be wise if we actually talked about why we even chose to do that in the first place versus, say, flying into Phoenix and catching a couple shuttle buses out. Why we decided to do that and go from there.
Right. So why go through all the trouble of doing things public transit way instead of just driving? Because, I mean, we both have cars. And the thing is that we wanted to try something a little different. We have gone to many different places where we've drove there, and that's perfectly fine, and you have certain freedoms with that. But what if you don't have a car? How are you going to get to these places if a car is not an option for you, or if renting a car is too expensive? So we wanted to see...
Or you're not old enough to rent a car.
Right. We wanted to see, can you get out to a place such as this without having a car be an option?
And to be fair, I've done this years ago with my mom and sister. We actually, I was living up in San Francisco with my grandmother at the time. They were living in SoCal. We met up in Merced on the train, and then we took the Yosemite shuttle bus out there. And then one of the Behind the Adventure videos, I think it was me and your sister took the Amtrak out there as well. And so, yeah, Yosemite is a place that you can do that, but there's very few other parks that you can do that. So when we figured out you can actually take a shuttle from Flagstaff out to the Grand Canyon, we'll wait for the wind to die down. So what were we even talking about?
The beauty of filming on site in these places and having not quite the audio setup that we would like at the moment.
Yeah, so what were we talking about again? I can't remember.
Public transit to get to these places.
Yeah, the fact that there's very, very few parks that you have that ability to do, sadly, is quite frustrating. I'm not gonna lie. Now I understand for like really far out of the way parks it makes sense, but for more of the popular ones, I really wish there were more options, because they're always complaining about how there's long lines of cars trying to get into the park, and it's like, well, gee whiz, if you guys offered a reliable alternative form of transportation, I think people might consider taking it.
Well, yeah, and well, for a park like this, they do have that.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We wanted to see what options were actually out there as far as public transit was concerned, because before we did this, we didn't really know anything about that. So we did a little research, and we figured out that we could start from LA, and we could take a train out to Flagstaff, and then from Flagstaff we could take a shuttle, van, bus, whatever you want to call it, from there to the Grand Canyon. And then in the Grand Canyon, they have shuttle buses going all over the park, like every 15-20 minutes or so. So even once you get into the park, you don't necessarily have to worry about having to walk everywhere. You can still get to places via public transit, which is very nice.
Yeah, and yeah, that's definitely one of the things. So one other thing we had to decide when taking the train is it's less than a 12-hour ride, because we left Los Angeles right around 6 o'clock, and we got dumped off in Flagstaff at 2 a.m. California time, 3 a.m. Arizona time, because Arizona is an hour ahead. And we had to decide for that very short period of time, is it worth it for us to just rough it in coach or get a sleeper car. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind is if you get a sleeper car, you get a private room, you get meals included for your duration on the train, so it'll be breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And in our case, we were going to be on so short, we were only going to get dinner, and that was it. And the sleeper room rate was about 3 to 4 times as much as the coach rate, and you still have to get off at the same time, you know, bright and early before the sun even comes up in the morning. So it was kind of a back and forth. I decided to get the Amtrak credit card because they were running a promotion, and I don't know what happened, but
you still haven't received your points from that?
As of the time of filming, I still haven't received my points from that, so I don't know what happened there. I need to get in touch with them eventually. It's just I've had so much going on in my personal life, prepping for this, that it just became a non-issue at that point. It's like, you know what, we'll just pay cash for the trip. We have enough lying around. So that was definitely a little bit of a bummer, but at the same time, it's like, realistically speaking, kind of makes it more of a realistic scenario for most people.
Right. And yeah, that's the thing. We were going back and forth about whether or not to get the sleeper car. And I will say this, if you're going to be on a long train trip, if you're going across several states,
or you're at least going to get 2 or 3 meals out of it.
If you're going to be on the train for several days even, then if you have the money to use it, I think it would be good to get the sleeper car. For the duration that we were on it, we decided we were just going to rough it and sleep in coach. And the thing is like, regardless of what you do, you have to go into it expecting that you're not going to get a lot of sleep. That's just the reality of it. The seats were actually more comfortable than I thought they were going to be, so that was a plus, but it was still going to be a rough night of sleep. We were able to get at least a little bit though.
I was able to get more sleep than I thought I would, and the other thing that didn't help is right before the trip was the O Scale West model train show, so I was getting home late because of Memorial Day traffic, waking up really early to make it out to that. Had to wake up stupidly early on because the show was Friday set up, Saturday and Sunday were showing, and then we tore down. I had to wake up stupidly early on Sunday morning to fly into Burbank so we could link up to do the trip, and then didn't get a ton of sleep the night before, and then, oh hey, we're jumping on the train. So I definitely went into this very sleep deprived, and I'm not gonna lie, somewhat burnt out. But I will say that despite all that, it's still been a really, really fun trip. I've been really amazed. And overall, I have to say, I was actually pleasantly surprised with the quality of the experience we've had with taking transit to and from the park. The only area that was a slight issue was when we went to go do our tour of the park that started out in Tucson, which is, hi Raven, how's it going, buddy? It's a big old raven that plopped down like 3 feet away from us.
It's probably looking to see if the family that left any scraps behind.
You go for our backpack, buddy. We're filming. It's gonna be great. That's a whole story in and of itself. But no, the thing is, it's kind of like, the only real issue that we had is when we went to go jump the bus to Tucson, the driver was curious if we had a pass, and we kind of explained to her that we took the Amtrak shuttle in, and she was kind of like, what? Huh? And I'm like, so I kind of was like, yeah, we took the shuttle from we took Amtrak from Los Angeles to Flagstaff, and then from Flagstaff to the park. She goes, oh, okay. Now I get it. So we had to get you can't see it, but we got a wrist stamp that effectively said we've had our, entry fee paid, because you either could park in Tucson and jump the shuttle in, but you had to have either a valid annual permit, which we've had, but because of time reasons it expired, and we decided it wasn't worth renewing it until we'd actually need it, or you can just buy an entry permit, at multiple pay stations before you come in, and then you can jump the shuttle in, which is a great feature. The only thing is, in our case, because we took the shuttle in, it made things a little more complicated. But when we explained it to the driver, and it was like, oh, okay. Then we got on late that night. Yeah, it was no big deal. Showed our stamp to the driver, like, oh, you guys are good. No worries. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you decide to park outside the park or take the shuttle in, it's definitely make sure to ask about the wrist stamp if you're going to leave the park and then want to come back in again, so you don't get told, sorry, you don't have a pass on you, you can't come in.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably show your driver your Amtrak ticket, but you don't want to chance it.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of an element of, because you're taking public transit, you're also at the mercy of the schedules. And the way that it works is that they have, like, either on the signs at the bus stop or they have it in the brochure. It's like, this is the bus schedule. Buses run every 20 minutes or
10
so.
to 20 minutes, we'll say.
But the thing is that depending on the circumstances of the day, that's not necessarily always followed to the T for various reasons, and that just happens. So a lot of times you have to check in with the bus drivers themselves to get an idea of how things are running and what actually is going to be the last bus and all of that stuff. So, and also there's the fact that it's like, I mean, when you're waiting at the bus stop, if you don't have the schedule right in front of you, or even if the schedule is not 100% reliable, you don't know when your next bus is going to come.
It could be 30 seconds or 30 minutes away and you have no way of knowing. So yeah, that's one of the things where I definitely feel like NPS could really improve upon, is because cell service is okay throughout the main portion of the park. I have T-Mobile and I'm on an older phone, and I mean, I definitely couldn't stream YouTube videos or anything like that, but I had enough to send, photos to my mom and friends, and a friend messaged me to say thanks for getting some parts made and sent me some photos over Facebook Messenger. So there's definitely enough cell service to handle something like that. I don't see why they couldn't have either like a map-based thing or even just a little dot matrix LED sign that says next bus in X number of minutes, and it uses the bus's actual GPS location. Because sometimes if the buses are running behind, what the drivers will do is they'll ask, hey, does anybody need to go to the trailer village? And if nobody says anything, they'll just skip going to that stop because they're trying to make up for lost time. They're still going to follow a route, but it's like if nobody needs to get on or off there, they're just going to, cruise on by just for the sake of time. But definitely having something like that would be nice, or for more out of the way stops, if there's a button you could push to say, request a bus, and then the bus swings by and gets you. But, that's just me playing transit engineer. I know Reese from, I forget which transit-oriented channel, would probably jump in here and have 50,000 other things to add in, but he's more of a transit nerd than I am. I got excited because the water train came in this morning. All right, that's all I'm gonna say.
Yes, Mr. Train Nerd over here definitely was getting his train fixed in by us doing this whole public transit thing to begin with, along with other stuff.
Not to mention that Flagstaff, holy crap, talk about train spotting heaven. I'm used to, maybe if we're lucky, like the time that we were in Moss Landing and we caught the Watsonville local going by, and that was really cool, but I'm used to very few trains running by. I remember the time that we stayed in Flagstaff on our road trip, it just seemed like all throughout the day and night, non-stop trains going either way. And when we were over at the Amtrak station, we passed a lot of trains. All of a sudden we're in there and we're hearing the crossing gates, ding, 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 ding. I'm literally running out there with the GoPro, like, I gotta film the train!
Yes, so if you have any interest in trains whatsoever, or you just want to see how many trains we encountered on this trip, you can check out the video for that.
And I didn't even film all of them because partway through one of the memory cards decided to act up. But yeah, that was also really fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, getting back to the park itself and transit, you're definitely not going to be able to see everything in the park from the bus, but there are definitely certain areas that are only accessible during certain parts of the year by bus. Like if you had like a backcountry permit, or I think if you got, a special pass because you have a handicap placard, you can drive all the way out to Hermit's Rest, but under normal conditions, you can't. So you have to take the bus to get out there, and understandably so, because there's very minimal parking out here. And they don't want 50,000 people clogging the roads up. So in that regard, it's very nice having the bus, although it is a good 45 minutes each way, according to our bus driver, to get here and back. So definitely, if you're on a time crunch, factor that in, that you gotta wait for the bus is full, you gotta wait for another one, the timing of it, and all that stuff. But we had overnight, so we have, it's like what?
Right now?
Yeah.
It's a little after 11:30.
Double check, because...
What, you don't trust my watch?
Yeah, it's a little, well, because of the time change. I didn't know if your watch adjusted or not.
I don't think we actually changed time, honestly.
I thought we did because Arizona's an hour ahead of us.
Well, that was before we switched. Before we sprung forward.
Whatever. Stupid daylight savings time. Besides the point, though, you know, if you're limited on time, definitely keep that in mind. But you can still see a lot if you just hop like the orange bus and just ride that in a loop.
Yeah, I mean, point is that, and part of this is kind of the catch-22 of coming to these more popular parks, is that Grand Canyon is very popular. I mean, even if people haven't seen it, they have definitely heard of it, and for good reason. It is very spectacular. Because it's very popular, though, it gets very crowded. And because of that, it kind of, I think, forces the NPS system in a way to try to get visiting regulated and more efficient. And thus, they have all of these shuttle services and all that other stuff to kind of keep the flow of visitor traffic going. And that is helpful because then it means that it makes things more accessible to more visitors, but there's still a bit of an efficiency to it. On the other hand, it can be a con because it's so popular, you have a lot of people and it can get crowded at times. I mean, some of the buses we rode in, we were packed like sardines in there.
It was not as bad as like the trains in Japan where people are smashed like this.
Yeah,
By
American standards, let's put it that way.
By American standards, though, it was packed with people, and I can only imagine what it was like because our shuttle bus driver was telling us, as well as some other bus drivers were saying, that over Memorial Day weekend and other major holidays like that, it's not uncommon to take at least an hour just to get to the pay entrance gate, let alone into the park itself. Proper, because the pay gate's still a ways away from the actual park. So yeah, that's definitely another thing to keep in mind, is it's like, just because you're taking the bus doesn't mean the bus isn't going to be stuck in the same traffic as everybody else.
The public transit doesn't have their own bypass way.
I mean, there's certain routes that only the bus can drive on, but yeah, it's like, what good is the Hermit's Rest bus if you can't even get to the Hermit's Rest bus because the blue bus is stuck in traffic? So, but yeah, I mean, nothing is perfect, but I do have to say, though, for all of its faults, I'm still very impressed with the bus service out here. All the bus drivers have been, you know, nice, friendly. We had a really nice bus driver that we caught on the blue route to get back to our hotel who was talking to us because we were like the only people on the bus. Really, really cool. So I would highly recommend, even if you just drive into the park and leave your car at the hotel, definitely consider taking the bus around.
Absolutely.
Even if you're just going to go sightseeing on the thing, it's free. Your entrance fee pays for it, and you also figure the more demand they see for it, the more they're going to be inclined to want to expand the service. So I kind of feel like it's definitely one of those catch-22 things of they don't want to invest a ton into a bus service if nobody's going to use it, but if a lot of people are using it, then they see that they need to step up their game some more, and hopefully over time they can kind of make things better. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is we did not take the Grand Canyon Railway in. I know it's very expensive relative to taking the Amtrak shuttle in. Amtrak does actually run it. Groom, who's contracted through Amtrak, actually runs a shuttle to Williams where you can get to the train in. But I would definitely say if you had the money and you don't want to get stuck in traffic forever and you can get a ticket, I would actually make the case for taking the Grand Canyon Railroad in during a major holiday if you can meet those criteria, strictly because of how crowded things get in the park with the buses. Theoretically, you're able to bypass a lot of that. And I'm not gonna lie, the scenery actually looks pretty cool from when we did the off-roading tour. So if I had the money and the time, I'd consider actually doing the train just for the sake of comparison.
Oh yeah, it would definitely be a fun excursion, but it is definitely going to cost you.
Put that into the future trip fun thing.
So yeah, and again, and we were actually, because it's like people from all over the world come out here, we actually ran into a couple that was from Kentucky, and they were talking about some of the limitations that they have to come out here, because apparently there used to be a train that ran from where they are and they could come out all the way to Arizona, but apparently that's not the case anymore. So if they want to take the train to come to a place like this, they have to go to Chicago first.
Or Indianapolis. It was kind of hard to say which one was closer, but yeah, that's definitely a thing to keep in mind.
So depending on where you are, I mean, obviously if you're coming from out of the country, you got to get to the country first.
Yeah.
But if you're in the United States, there probably is going to be some differences of accessibility for public transit depending on what state you're coming from. We're doing this based off of our experience coming from California. And coming from California, the option to take strictly public transit to get to the Grand Canyon is out there that we discovered.
And I'll overlay or just do a post trip Calvin talking really quick about if it's possible, because we took the Southwest Chief to get out. If you were to start, we'll just hypothetically say in Chicago, just for the sake of the other extreme end, and then it stops in various places along the way. Could you take a train from Chicago to the Grand Canyon and make it work? I really don't know, because the Chicago train is going to get in a lot later. That's actually technically, we're going to be taking the originated in Chicago back to Los Angeles train tonight to get back. But it's definitely something to keep in mind. The other thing is Groom Transport, which is the company that Amtrak contracts through. They actually will run a shuttle service from Phoenix to Flagstaff, and then you can catch a second shuttle from Flagstaff to the Grand Canyon, which is what we did. So that's another option if you say you can't take the train somewhere. You could fly into Phoenix and then catch 2 different shuttles to get out.
Right.
Which, you know, it's not ideal, but there's like a regional airport in Phoenix and it's like cha-ching to get into. So there's another option, you know. So you're not just totally screwed if you can only fly into Phoenix and it's like, oh no, I can't take the train, I'm screwed. I was actually pleasantly surprised to see it. Heck, they even run a shuttle of stinking Sedona.
Yeah, and
I was
it probably in the grand scheme of things is more economical to take the shuttle than try to rent a car.
Yeah, for sure, because it's like we're looking at doing the balloon fiesta in Albuquerque, and it's like getting a rental car for a week. It's like we're eating ramen noodles for a couple of months, kids. It's gonna be pricey. It's gonna be worth it, probably yes, but definitely something to keep in mind there as well. So yeah.
So, in conclusion, can you take public transit to get to the Grand Canyon? Depending on where you're coming from, yes, you can. So
I'm gonna say yes, because really, like I just mentioned, you could either take the train in or, you know, go to Phoenix.
Yes. Okay.
And
So
go from there.
technicalities here and there. Bottom line is that there
Yes, you can.
there are options to come out here without having to have or rent a car. So the accessibility is available if you're willing to do a little bit of research to find what those options are.
And make some sacrifices as well, just in terms of the fact that you are going to be stuck to a bus schedule. You might have long layovers. Like we had a 3.5-hour layover in Flagstaff, and
It gave us enough time to walk over to a coffee shop and get some breakfast.
yeah, I mean, once the coffee shop opened, we were like one of the first people in line, got some wicked breakfast, got to watch them roasting coffee live, and then had plenty of time to walk back to the train station, do a little more rail fanning, talk to the really nice Amish family from Ohio, and catch our bus.
So there you go. Yep, I think we will conclude this episode here. If anybody has any other questions, or if there's some other public transit options to other places that you know about and you would like us to investigate,
Please let us know.
yeah, leave a comment below, because this is not the last time, hopefully, that we will be doing this whole public transit strategy.
No,
But
I want to do it some more.
we're kind of noobs at this, so you know, bear with us. And if you have any suggestions, let us know. Take care, everyone.
See you later. I'm hungry.